السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، وأصلي وأسلم على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. أما بعد، فسائلين المولى سبحانه وتعالى أن يجعلنا وإياكم من المستمعين للقول والمتبعين أحسنه، كما نسأله أن يجعل ما نقوله ونسمعه حجة لنا لا علينا يوم الدين. ثم أما بعد، فالسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. With the will of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are going to have a look at one or two verses where we are going to demonstrate how important the endings of the verses, or the spiritual endings of jurisprudence verses are in reality. So bi'idhnillahi tabarak wa ta'ala, we are going to have a look at it, and then it will become very clear how it works. So the first one, I think, is a very relevant topic, because I've just read here that 58% of the children are not having enough sleep, and this may then lead to depression, and depression can lead to suicide. And the reason why I'm saying this is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks in the Qur'an about suicide, when He talks about people who want to bring an end to their lives because they feel that the world has given up on them, or that they have lost out on many things in life, or just because they cannot live with the pain that they may have caused other people in the past, or they do not know how to live with themselves. And when everything seems to be dark and obscure and murky, when everything seems to be, subhanAllah, when everything seems to have lost reason, then some people end up in a well of despair, and they don't know how to get out of that well. So bi'idhnillahi azza wa jal, what I want to show here is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in ayah, or in Surah 4, ayah 29, O you who have believed, do not consume one another's wealth unjustly, but only in lawful business by mutual consent. وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, strangely enough, this is really a verse that has to do with economics. It has to do with the way that people interact with each other financially. So where is the link between suicide on the one hand and then finances on the other? And it already becomes clear, even by just mentioning this, you can already put the pieces of the puzzle together. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِلَّا عَنْ تَرَاضٍ مِّنْكُمْ. Yani the only legal way of you to engage with one another financially is by rida wal qabul, not by somebody presenting an offer and the other one accepting it. Otherwise it would be theft, it would be stealing, and so much more. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He says that we have to be just in our financial transactions, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala immediately after that says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, and do not kill yourselves, do not bring an end to your lives. Because many people who live in the midst of poverty, after having had money, they become very depressed. And when they do not know how to feed their children, when they do not know how to pay their rent, how to pay their bills, then it can very easily become a very dark place where you end up thinking of ending your life. So now Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, like, look, if you want to prevent people from ending their lives, then start already by creating that financial environment where everybody will thrive. Meaning that in Islam, we have that financial system to start with, which is called zakat, helping the people. But even those who engage with each other financially, be correct, because there is nothing more painful than somebody being untruthful to you, than somebody breaking his or her promise, than somebody promising you the world when they sign the contract but then don't live up to the conditions. Now, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at the end of this legal verse says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, I find it so special, like, because one of the many reasons why people put an end to their lives is financial problems, or the other one is when they are brokenhearted. So now when Allah wa ta'ala says, do not bring an end to, and do not kill yourselves, He didn't say because otherwise you will end up in hell. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse didn't say otherwise you will be nothing but losers. Otherwise you will be so Allah Jalla wa ala didn't insult these people, which He never does, but He also didn't blame them, and He didn't make them despair. He says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا. Meaning, like, do not kill yourselves, because verily Allah has mercy for you. I mean, subhanAllah, when you give up on life, know that I didn't give up on you. And even if you did give up on me, I'm still there for you. So when you stand on that ledge or on that bridge, ready to throw yourself off that bridge, when you think of yani, overdosing yourself with any kind of medication, I am still there until you commit that act. I am telling you, if life is not worth living for, then I am. So, subhanAllah, how could we go from Allah Jalla wa Ala talking about these financial transactions, then going to do not kill yourself, and then going towards what? Towards Inna Allah kana bikum rahima. Verily, Allah has rahmah for you. And this is why it is important, especially today where people are very aware of mental health, where people speak openly, sports people, they speak about openly about their depression, about their anxiety, performance anxiety, and so forth. So it is very important to know that Muslims sometimes lack wisdom, lack patience and insight. And then they say, like, if somebody wants to put an end to their lives, they say, why are you giving up? Don't you know it's haram? Of course they do know it's haram. Allah Jalla wa Ala didn't approach people in that way. So if we want to prevent people from taking their lives, the time has come to design a better social structure or financial structure around the world. Because for the moment, the rich are getting richer, and getting rich is okay. It's okay if you have billions and you pay your zakat, that's all right. We are not communists. We are allowed to be richer than other people. But we are not allowed to enrich ourselves at the expense of other people and create a system that only serves people, or part, yani for the greater part, serves people that are already rich. So this is why, barakallahu fikum, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows this, and knows how important it is yani, to create such a society. So he says, look, until you get there, yani, be merciful with people. Whenever you see people wanting to give up, inspire them with mercy. Exactly like in Surah Az-Zumar, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said very clearly, قُلْ يَا عِبَادِيَ الَّذِينَ أَسْرَفُوا عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ لَا تَقْنَطُوا مِنْ رَحْمَةِ اللَّهِ. O people who have transgressed against themselves in sin, do not despair of Allah's mercy. So Allah once again didn't say like, oh you sinners, oh you losers, oh you who are on your way to hell and self-destruction, now do not despair of my mercy, because if I would like to, I could forgive you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, قُلْ يَا عِبَادِي, say, oh my servants. So whom is he addressing? Well, transgressors against themselves. So he's not addressing like the people that would be considered to be very pious, right? But he calls them my slaves, he calls them my servants, because he gave them the key to La ilaha illallah, so he cherishes these people. He gave them the key to Jannah, and he's like literally encouraging them. He's siding with them, not in their sin, but like saying, come on, don't give up. Yani, even if you transgressed against yourself, la taqnatu. Yani, do not despair of Allah's mercy. So if we want people to hope for Allah's mercy, then we have to give them a life of hope. Yeah, it's not sufficient to say, well, you should hope Allah will come with a solution. That's not the way it works. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants us to come with the solution. And that's why people, like in Surah Yasin, أَنُطْعِمُ, will we then feed those لَوْ شَاءَ اللَّهُ أَطْعَمَ, yani if those whom if Allah would have wanted would have fed. Yani this is a way that people would think, but it is wrong. So what is the takeaway from this verse? There is a connection between finances and wanting to put an end to your life. It's so actual, it's so relevant. But the more time goes on, the more we see how relevant the Qur'an is. It always was, by the way. But for us to read certain verses today, it is different from the way that the people before us would read it. And this is exactly what the Qur'an brings. It's that elasticity, that allows you to understand different things in different times. And this is what makes the Qur'an that perfect universal message that will serve mankind, or rather that will guide mankind, or humankind rather, until the end of times. So, financial situation, then people want to bring an end to their lives, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Yani, what? Then Allah Jalla wa ala says, وَلَا تَقْتُلُوا أَنفُسَكُمْ, do not kill yourselves, إِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا. Because verily, and Allah says, كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا. He doesn't say, سَيَكُونُ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا, or He didn't say, إِنَّ اللَّهَ رَحِيمٌ. Yani, when the verb of the past tense, كَانَ, is in front of this here, كَانَ بِكُمْ رَحِيمًا, then it means He was, He always was, and is now, and will always be. So even when you were giving up on yourself, Allah had mercy for you, but you did not see it. لأن منعه قد يكون في عطائه وعطاءه قد يكون في منعه. Because sometimes He withholds to give you, but you don't understand. Or He gives you in order to withhold and take away from you. And this is where we are tested to the core and to the bone, but that test is a mercy. Because it are these difficult times that create us, make us, and shape us. And if it were not for these difficult periods in life, then, or different moments in life, then we would have probably not grown spiritually. We would have not have been illuminated spiritually, and we would not have been as strong religiously. Wallahu subhanahu wa ta'ala a'lam. And then we go to the second verse. I have it here in front of me because I do not like to translate them myself. So I have them here. Allah Jalla wa ala in 267, He says, Yani, O you who have believed, spend from the good things which you have earned, and from that which we have produced for you from the earth. And do not aim toward the defective therefrom, spending from that while you would not take it, except with closed eyes, and know that Allah is free of need and praiseworthy. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this verse is saying that we have to spend of the good things. Now, and this is in general. It was about zakat, according to the scholars, but it is also in relation to sadaqat. We are very quick to spend from the things we do not need or we do not like. Definitely, they're not on the top of our list, right? Like I give you a perfume, but it would not be that perfume that I like. Like I have 3 bottles, I will choose like either the one that is number 2 on my list or number 3, but it will be very difficult to give my preferred one. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَن تَنَالُوا الْبِرَّ حَتَّى تُنْفِقُوا مِمَّا تُحِبُّونَ. You will not attain righteousness until you give away from that what you love. Now, tuhibbun is the present tense, and it means you keep on giving. Because the moment you give something away that you love, even if it was not what you love more, you will have to give something else as well, until you give away what you love most. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, give of the good things what you have earned, and from that which we have produced from you from the earth, and do not aim toward the defective therefrom, spending from that while you will not take it if you're even if your eyes accept with closed eyes, meaning you would just accept it and say, it's okay. But at the end, Allah says, and know that Allah is free of need and praiseworthy. Like, why is this? It is connected to sadaqah. Allah is free of need, and Allah is praiseworthy. So when you give, then you do not give because Allah is needy. You give because you are needy. Now, inna Allah ghaniyun. He's not in need of your sadaqah. You are in need of giving sadaqah, because the one who gives in sadaqah is actually investing in himself or herself. And that is what we very often forget. We forget that spending on others is literally spending on yourself. Now, so people, فَمَنْ يَبْخَلْ, the one who... So the one that is too stingy to spend on people is in reality too stingy to spend on himself. And this is why Allah says, مَنْ عَمِلَ صَالِحًا فَلِنَفْسِهِ. The one who does good towards him or herself. So now Allah Jalla wa ala says, when you spend, you do not spend because you think Allah is in need of your spending. You are in need of your spending. And that's why on others. And that's why the Sha'ir said, the poet said, أنت للمال إذا أمسكته وإذا أنفقته فالمال لك. You belong to money when you hold on to your money, but when you let it go of your money, money belongs to you. Because then you have eternalized your money. So when you are doubting, will I spend on that person? Will I give that person? You are just saying, like, will I buy an eternal bliss? Yes or no? Will I buy a castle made out of diamond? Yes or no? Will I pay for a never-ending running, yani a never-ending flowing river? Yes or no? So this is what we are saying. So when you truly believe that when you spend, that you give it to Allah, because you know when you give it to Allah that He will return it to you because He's not in need of it. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Quran makes it also very clear. Yani when He says, مَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يُقَرِضُ اللَّهَ قَرْضًا حَسَنًا فَيُضَاعِفَهُ لَهُ أَضْعَافًا كَثِيرًا وَاللَّهُ يَقْبِضُ وَيَبْسُطُ وَإِلَيْهِ تُرْجَعُونَ. Who is the one that wants to give Allah a good loan so that Allah would multiply it for him? And that's why when people come Yawm al-Qiyamah, they will see that they will have mountains of hasanat. And they will say, Rabbi, I didn't do this. Like this goes way beyond what I've done. It is far too much. It is not in line with my efforts, Ya Rabbi. And then Allah will say, like, do you remember when you gave that date to that needy person, or may not have been a needy person, just you gave a date to someone. And the person will say, yes. And then Allah said, I accepted that sadaqah and I planted it and it turned into this mountain of hasanat. And this is why Ibn Kathir rahimahullah mentions that Aisha radiallahu anha gave away half a date. And they said, why do you give away the half of a date? She said, didn't you read that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَن يَعْمَلْ مِثْقَالَ ذَرَّةٍ خَيْرًا يَرَهُ? The one who does an atom weight of good will see it. She says, how many atom weights are in half of a date? So I'm just going to see, maybe I had a message here. No, it's good. Okay, so if you're going to have a look, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so when you're too stingy to give, then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when you're too stingy to give, it is like you do not trust Allah. That is what's happening. Now, why does Allah say Hamid? Well, you see, barakallahu feekum, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَا تَيَمَّمُوا الْخَبِيثِ مِنْهُ تُنْفِقُونَ وَلَسْتُمْ بِآخِذِهِ إِلَّا أَن تُغْمِضُوا فِيهِ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّ اللَّهَ غَنِيٌّ حَمِيدٌ. So Allah says, and don't spend of things that you would not want to receive. Don't give away things you do not want to receive. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he's actually saying this, and then He says that He's praiseworthy. Why? Because my hat is all like it. So when you spend of the things you do not like for yourself, there's nothing praiseworthy in you. So if you know that Allah is praiseworthy and you know that Allah loves praiseworthy matters and things, then better come up with things that make you praiseworthy in the eyes of Allah Jalla wa Ala subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because Al-Hamid is not only the praiseworthy, He's also the one that praises His servants when they act, when they do or perform good deeds. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here, He says, like, it is connected to sadaqat, or to it's connected to sadaqat, or it is connected to zakat. Give, when it's connected to zakat, we say it has to do with, be sure that the money that you're giving when you're paying zakat, that it is of your pure money, not money that you made and which is doubtful. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says Allah is ghani. Allah doesn't need your evil, dirty money. Now, this becomes very problematic if you're going to have a look at it, that our scholars say, like, if you are paid to work 8 hours, for example, and you take a break of 40 minutes instead of 30, now you have a break of 40 minutes instead of 30, then these 10 minutes is haram money. That is just haram money. This is the way that our scholars would explain this, except that which is ma'fuun anhu. The ma'fu anhu is like, for example, 5 minutes before, 5 to 4, 10 to 4, the CEO walks, and it sees everybody talking to each other. We know, like, 10 to 4, 5 to 4, everybody starts packing and so forth. But if you're literally, like the majority of people, switching on your computer between doing your own private things and then working and taking away of the amount of work, even if you are able to finish your work, if you are paid, for example, to do a job like a contractor from this time to that time, or to finish this job or building, whatever, then that's okay. But if you have a contract of 37.5 hours and your breaks are known, then this money definitely is very doubtful, meaning that you will spend it, and also on zakat, Allah doesn't want this money. Like, even the people of Quraysh, they were smart enough that whenever they would dress up or beautify or adorn the Kaaba, they would make sure that there was no money that was connected to usury, for example, to riba. Yani they wouldn't use that money. They would just use money that they knew was made only by doing things correctly. So subhanAllah, this is what they used to do. So Allah Jalla wa Ala is warning us. He says, spend sadaqat, don't give things. If it's a sadaqah, don't just give second rank things, but give what you like. If it's zakat, give only from money that is pure, and know that Allah is ghani. Allah is not in need of your sadaqah. He will give it back to you. He's ghani, he doesn't need your shubha money, your doubtful money. And know that he is Hamid, that he himself has praised himself, but that he also praises others. So put yourself in a praiseworthy situation, so that when you give, that Allah Jalla wa Ala, will praise you on the day of judgment and call the people, and he will say, look at this person, he or she was hiding his or her sadaqat, and here the person is, I'm praising him in front of you. And this is something that Allah Jalla wa Ala will do. And the last verse for today, Barakallahu Fikum, is where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Hajj, and he says, and remember Allah during numbered days, then whoever hastens his departure in 2 days, there is no sin upon him, and whoever delays until the third, there is no sin upon him, for him who fears Allah. And fear Allah, and know that unto him you will be gathered. So واذكروا الله في أيام معدودات فمن تعجل في يومين فلا إثم عليه ومن تأخر فلا إثم عليه لمن اتقى. وَاتَّقُوا, and know that your return is to Allah. Look at how beautiful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala draws, figuratively speaking, this picture right in front of us. Like it is when you are there sleeping these 2 days or 3 days, if you like, and you are literally seeing all the people leave. You see them leave. When I went on Hajj, after 2 days, the majority of people would leave, and we stayed for 3 days, not making us better in any way. So, and then you see the people leave, and then it just looks like Qiyamah. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He wants us, whenever we perform any act of worship, He wants us to connect it to the akhirah. Now, even when you give away a sadaqah, it makes you think of hasanat and sayyi'at. When you pray, the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Sallu salat muwaddi'." Pray like somebody who's bidding farewell. Now, or pray like somebody who doesn't think that he or she will ever pray again. Meaning that this thought will enhance your prayer and beautify it. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he reminds people who are on Hajj that their return is to Allah. Why? Because for people, Hajj has become the goal. Now, it has become a goal. But in reality, Hajj is no more than a means. Now, because when you think that Hajj is your goal, then you will misbehave. When you know that your goal is to return to Allah Jalla wa Ala, then you will watch out for what you say and what you do. And that's why a lot of people that go on Hajj, they misbehave. I'm not saying the majority, I'm saying a lot of them. They misbehave, they start pushing each other. When you travel in group, people lose their patience. It is all because I'm doing Hajj now, I'm there, I made it. This is my faridatul umr. And this is my obligation, once in a lifetime obligation and opportunity, so here I am. So we're so focused on Hajj that we actually forget that it's all about returning to Allah. And that's why Allah speaks about returning to Him, like watch out what you do during Hajj, watch out what you're saying, watch out how you are behaving, how you are treating other people, because your return is to me. So your traveling towards Mecca was nothing more than a transit. And that's what you sometimes need to tell yourself when you tell your wife or your husband in the morning when you get some fresh bread, after Ramadan, then you tell yourself, well, I'm not really going to the bakery. The bakery is a transit. I'm not going back home. I'm going back to Allah. So when we remind ourselves of our return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then everything we do will be executed to perfection. It is only when we lose track of why, or when we lose track or forget or are distracted from the fact that we are going back to Allah, that we start misbehaving. And this is a very strong verse, because وَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ وَاعْلَمُوا أَنَّكُمْ إِلَيْهِ تُحْشَرُونَ. Fear Allah and know that you will be gathered in front of Him. Imagine that this would always be on your mind, whatever you do, in your interaction with people, the way you talk to people, the way you interact, the way you buy, the way you sell, the way you rent, the way you interact, whatever, your worship. So if you know that everything you do You will be asked about. Imagine me leaving the room here, and then I'm in the center here, and I walk out of the center, and then like 3 minutes later, I say, "Oh, I forgot to turn off the light." Now I can actually do this two ways. Like, yeah, it's okay. I mean, it's all right. Or I can go back, knowing that Allah Jalla wa Ala, that my return is to Him. So if I know my return is to Him, then I will go back all the way, walk back, switch off the light, turn off the light rather, and then what, and so forth. So it's the same thing. You park your car, a little scratch, and everything in your body says, no, 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 you didn't touch the car. You know you did. No, 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 it's probably nothing. I'm not going to look at it. It was like really not. Was it something? You talk to yourself, right? And no, it wasn't. So you prefer not to look. You walk like that. And in reality, if there is a scratch, a real scratch, then this will lead to a decrease in the value of the car when it is sold. So, for example, it was £5,000, and now it is, for example, because of that scratch, they say, well, it's on the door, that's £500 less, £250 less. So you get 4,005 or 4,750. That person doesn't know who did it. You do. You forgot about it. Then Yawm al-Qiyamah you come and you say, that 250, that 500, I want it in hasanat now. So when you now know that you return to Allah and you're telling yourself, oh no, my insurance will go up and this and that, that's okay. It's better that your insurance goes up even for a silly little tiny insignificant scratch than going back to Allah Jalla wa Ala subhanahu wa ta'ala and having to pay in hasanat. And if you do things correctly, then usually they will turn out fine for you. It is only when you try to escape your duty and what Allah wants that things will not turn out the way you would like them to turn out. So anyway, we took away from these three verses, and of course I'm doing this at a very basic level. When in my study around it, I dive into the words, into the grammar, into the morphology, into the and so forth, and what the Mufassirun have said about this. But now, as it is Ramadan, I want to make it a bit spiritual and practical. So what we've taken away is one. We need to be correct in our transactions. If we don't, then we will hurt people. Then people may become depressed because of being wronged, and then they may end up wanting to put an end to their lives. So we can prevent that, one, by acting correctly, and two, by creating a better financial structure in the world, because this one only helps people who have money and not those who don't, up to a certain level. Then the second one was where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when you interact with people, when you give sadaqah, do it for Allah, because Allah doesn't need it. You do it for yourself, so don't talk about it. And also, don't give away things that you do not like. And then know that Allah is praiseworthy, so behave yourself accordingly, in light of this name, this divine name. And then thirdly, it is whenever we do something and we remind ourselves that our return is to Allah Jalla wa Ala, then we will execute it to perfection. And also Hajj, it is not your goal. Hajj is not a goal. Hajj is a means. It is your means to prepare yourself to encounter, to meet Allah Jalla wa Ala, and to be gathered in front of Him. Wallahu subhanahu wa ta'ala a'la wa a'lam. Excuse me. If there are any questions, then you can ask me now bi'idhnillahi tabaraka wa ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum, Shaykh. I had a question last week. If we are to arrive at a state of submission with complete contentment, could it be relevant to think that Musa alayhi salam wanted his followers in the desert to be content with the unvaried diet of manna and quails because it came from Allah, and that the better thing they were willingly not accepting was the gift of contentment? Yes, definitely. That's one of the things that we can take away from this, without any doubt. It is definitely the case that they were being tested. And every ummah was tested, by the way. We are also tested. Allah puts love in our hearts for something, and then He tests us. He gave us love for money, but there is only one way to make money, that's halal, the halal way. So no riba, no stealing, no gambling, whatever. So and this is with everything. Like Allah has given us a love for something, and then He tests us in that something, because He wants us to undo or to rid ourselves from everything apart from Him Jalla wa Ala subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is the best prayer for our departed beloved ones? The best prayer is the one that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said. Yeah, the one that the Prophet alayhi salatu told us to say whenever we make the janazah prayer. That is the one that we are going to say for these people and for the deceased. And you can find that in books of the Afkar. You go to the chapter of janazah, and there you find these what? There you find these supplications. 3. What are the best actions during the last 10 nights? It all depends. But the best worship is reciting the Quran in your salah. That is the best worship. So making your prayer as long as you can, then in your sujood making a lot of supplications, and then after that doing a lot of dhikr and sleeping as little as possible, and then of course repetitively say Allahumma innaka afuwun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna, because Aisha radiallahu anha said, Ya Rasulullah, what should I say when I see and notice that it is Laylatul Qadr? Then he said, alayhi salatu wasalam, when you see that it is Laylatul Qadr, say, Allahumma innaka afuun tuhibbul afwa fa'fu anna. Wallahu subhanahu wa ta'ala a'la wa a'lam. Okay, جزاكم الله خيرا وبارك الله فيكم وأصلي وأسلم على رسوله الكريم وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. And then next time بإذن الله عز وجل we will choose 3 other verses that we are going to have a look at. Don't forget me your dua. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give you a very pleasant journey through the last 10 days of Ramadan. We ask Allah Jalla wa Ala to accept it from you and me. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.